The night was cold, darker than usual. The colony's broken lights flickered weakly, as if they too had lost hope. The air carried dust, smoke, and hunger. And in the shadows of the old supply station, an alien mother held her little daughter. Close, her arms were thin, her skin pale, and her eyes full of fear. The child pressed her face against her mother's chest, whispering weakly, "Mama, I'm hungry." The mother's heart twisted in pain. She had no food left, not even a piece of stale bread. For days, she had searched the ruined streets, but everything was gone, stolen or too expensive to buy. She had seen many humans before, walking the colony with strength and power. Humans were respected, sometimes feared. They had resources, they had food, but they never looked at people like her. To them, she and her daughter were nothing, shadows in the dirt. But tonight, something changed. At the corner of the station, she saw a human worker. His clothes were dusty, his hands rough. He carried a pack that smelled faintly of bread and stew. The smell reached her nose and made her daughter stir. The little girl's weak fingers tugged at her mother's arm. Her wide eyes begged without words. The mother's breath shook. She knew what she must do, even if her pride broke. She stepped forward, slowly, her knees trembling. Then she dropped to the ground before the human. The dust clung to her face, but she didn't care. "Please." Her voice cracked, broken by desperation. "Feed my daughter, human, just give her something to eat." Her eyes burned with tears as she forced the words out. "I'll stay quiet, I'll cook, I'll stay in your bed if you want, just don't let her starve." The human froze. His rough hands stopped moving. His eyes widened at her words. He had expected maybe a beggar's cry for food, but not this. Not a mother offering her silence, her labor, her very body, only to save her child. For a moment there was no sound except the wind whistling through the broken metal frames of the station. The human looked down at her, at the way she clutched her daughter, at the way her shoulders shook with shame. The little girl peeked from her mother's arms. Her eyes were large, glowing faintly in the dark like alien stars. She did not understand her mother's words fully, but she understood one thing. She was hungry. The human swallowed hard. He had seen suffering before. He had walked past beggars. He had heard cries. But this was different. This was raw, painful, and too close to ignore. Still, he hesitated. If he gave her food, others might come. The overseers might notice. Helping her could mean trouble, and yet how could he walk away? The mother pressed her forehead to the ground. Her voice was almost a whisper now. "Take anything from me, just feed her. Please, I beg you." Her daughter coughed, weak and small. The sound pierced the silence like a knife. The human felt something shift in his chest, something heavy. He reached into his pack, his fingers brushing against the warm bread he had saved for his own meal. He knelt down. Slowly, his shadow fell over the mother and child. "What's her name?" he asked. His voice was low, unsure. The mother lifted her head in shock. She had expected anger, maybe mockery, but not a question. "Her name is Lyra," she whispered. The human's eyes softened as he looked at the girl. Lyra's lips were dry, her hands trembling. He pulled out the bread and broke it in half. He held it out. The little girl blinked as if unsure it was real. The mother gasped, staring at the food. Her hands shook as she helped her daughter take it. Lyra bit into the bread, and for the first time in days she smiled. The small, fragile smile of a child who had forgotten what hope tasted like. The human felt a strange warmth in his chest as he watched her eat, but he also felt the weight of the mother's words still hanging in the air. She had offered herself like a slave, like a thing, and that truth troubled him more than the hunger. "Get up," he said softly. His tone was not harsh, but firm. The mother looked at him in confusion. "You don't have to beg like this," he added. Her lips trembled. "But if I don't, they'll die. She'll die," she whispered, hugging Lyra tightly. The human's gaze went to the colony around them. The shadows moving in the alleys, the other eyes watching from the dark. The hunger here was deeper than he imagined, and the silence of the people was like a heavy chain. The night grew colder. The stars above blinked faintly through the smoke. The mother stayed on her knees, clutching her daughter, while the human stood before them, torn between fear of what might come and the pull of his own humanity. And in that moment, with the girl's small smile and the mother's desperate plea echoing in his mind, he knew this night would not end like any other. Something had started. Something dangerous. Something that would change everything. The night did not grow warmer, but for one small alien child, warmth had returned in the shape of half a loaf of bread. Lyra ate slowly at first, nibbling like a frightened bird, afraid the food might vanish if she took too much at once. Then hunger overcame fear, and she tore at it with tiny hands, crumbs falling on her mother's lap. The mother's eyes filled with tears as she watched. Each bite was like a miracle. Each sound of chewing was proof her daughter would survive another day. She whispered a prayer under her breath, words in her alien tongue that the human could not understand. But he understood her face, the relief that softened it, the love that never left it. The human stayed crouched, watching them. His rough hands rested on his knees. His stomach tightened with hunger. He had given away more than half his food. Yet strangely, he did not regret it. Something in the child's smile made the bread taste sweeter, even if it was no longer in his mouth. "Thank you," the mother whispered. Her voice trembled like a broken string. She bowed her head low. "You saved her life tonight, human." The man shifted uneasily. He was not used to gratitude. Most days, no one thanked him for anything. He was just another worker in the ruins of this colony, fixing broken pipes, cleaning debris, surviving. Yet now this woman looked at him as if he had done something great, something heroic. "What's your name?" he asked. His voice was gentle, almost careful. The mother blinked, surprised by the question. No human had ever asked her name. I am Soraya," she said quietly. "Soraya," he repeated, testing the sound. His eyes flicked to the girl, still chewing eagerly. "And she is Lyra." Soraya nodded, her lips pressing tight. She wanted to say more, but shame held her tongue. She remembered her words from before, the promise she had made in her desperation. Silence, labor, even her body. Anything, if the human would feed her daughter. Now, with Lyra eating, those words burned inside her like poison. The human's gaze hardened as if he could read her thoughts. "You don't need to offer yourself," he said firmly. "No child should starve. That's all this is." But Soraya shook her head. Her eyes glistened with fear. "You don't understand, human. In this colony, nothing is free. If the overseers hear that you gave us food, they will punish me, maybe punish her too." She pulled Lyra closer, kissing the top of her head. "That's why I said those things. That's why I begged." The man clenched his fists. Overseers. He had heard the word before. The cruel guards who controlled trade, who decided who ate and who starved. He had seen them beat workers for stealing crumbs. He had seen them laugh as mothers cried. And now, here they were again, invisible chains on the shoulders of this woman. He looked at Soraya and said quietly, "Let them try." The words sounded bold, but deep inside, he felt the weight of danger. He was only one man, and the overseers were many. Still, something in him had shifted. He could not go back to walking past cries in the street. Not after this. Lyra licked her fingers clean and smiled. Her little teeth shone in the dim light. She leaned against her mother's chest, full for the first time in days. Her breathing slowed, her eyelids heavy. Sleep crept over her like a soft blanket. Soraya stroked her daughter's hair, whispering, "Rest, little star. Rest now." The human stood, pulling his pack tighter on his shoulder. He looked around the station, the broken walls, the distant glow of watchfires where overseers roamed. He knew they had to move. "This place isn't safe," he said. "Take her home. I'll walk with you." Soraya hesitated. "Home?" she repeated softly. Her voice carried sorrow. "It is not a home, human, only a broken shelter still standing because no one cared enough to destroy it." "Then let me see it," he said. She studied him for a moment, her lips parting as if to protest. But then she nodded. Slowly, carefully, she lifted the sleeping child into her arms. The girl's head rested on her shoulder, her small arms dangling like threads. Together they left the station, moving through the shadows of the colony. The streets were empty, but not silent. Every corner had whispers. Every broken window had watching eyes. Some eyes widened when they saw Soraya walking with a human. Some turned away quickly, as if afraid to be caught looking. Soraya walked faster, whispering, "Don't stop, don't look at them. If they think you help us, it will bring trouble." The man kept his eyes forward, but he noticed the shapes in the dark. Other alien mothers, other children, all thin, all hollow-eyed. Their faces carried the same hunger, the same desperation, and he knew they would not forget what they saw tonight. At last, Soraya stopped at a collapsed structure near the edge of the colony. It had once been a storage hall, but now only half the roof remained. A fire burned weakly inside, just enough to keep the cold away. She stepped in, laying her daughter down on a pile of rags. The human looked around. His chest tightened. The walls were cracked, the floor damp. The smell of mold and smoke mixed together. It was no home for a child. Soraya caught his expression and lowered her eyes. "This is all I have," she whispered, shame heavy in her voice. He shook his head. "You kept her alive here. That's more than most could do." Her lips trembled. She turned away, busying herself with arranging rags. But inside, something fragile stirred. No one had spoken to her like that in years. Not with respect, not with kindness. The human set his pack down, pulling out a small tin of stew. He lit a small burner and warmed it. The smell filled the air, richer than anything this place had. Known in months, Soraya's stomach tightened, her mouth watered, but she did not reach for it. "Eat," he said, offering it. She shook her head quickly. "No, it's for her." She pointed to Lyra, sleeping softly. "She's sleeping. She'll eat again tomorrow. For now you need strength," he insisted, pushing it gently toward her. Soraya's hands shook as she accepted it. Tears rolled down her face as she took the first sip. It burned her tongue, but it was the sweetest taste she remembered. She whispered again, "Thank you." The human sat by the weak fire, silent, his eyes scanning the shadows. He could feel eyes still watching, unseen but present. Something about tonight told him this was only the beginning. And outside, far in the distance, heavy boots crunched on the dirt roads, overseers making their rounds. The fire in Soraya's broken shelter burned low, its smoke curling into the cracks of the ruined ceiling. Outside, the night pressed heavy, but inside, for the first time in weeks, Lyra slept without crying. Her small breaths were soft and steady, her thin arms tucked close like a fragile bird. The human sat near the fire, his back against a broken beam. His eyes kept moving, scanning the shadows. He could not rest, not with the overseers roaming, not with so many unseen eyes watching from the dark corners of the colony. Soraya sat quietly, her hands folded in her lap. She did not know what to say. She had begged like a slave, humiliated herself before a stranger. And yet, instead of mocking her, this human had given food, had walked beside her, had not demanded anything in return. It felt strange, almost impossible. At last she broke the silence, her voice low. "Why did you help us?" The human turned his gaze to her. His face was rough, tired, but his eyes carried a kind of weight. "Because she was hungry," he said simply, nodding toward Lyra. Soraya's lips pressed tight. Her heart twisted. Simple words, but powerful. No human had spoken like that before. Most ignored their suffering, some even laughed. But this one, he had chosen to see them. Before she could reply, a sound came from outside. A whisper, then another, feet shifting in the dirt. The human tensed, reaching for the pipe he carried for work, but now gripped like a weapon. From the shadows, two thin figures appeared at the doorway, their faces half hidden, their eyes hollow. They were aliens like Soraya, gaunt and desperate. Food. One of them hissed, his voice cracked. We saw you, human. We saw what you gave her, give us some too. Soraya gasped, pulling Lyra closer though the child still slept. Fear tightened her throat. If too many came, the overseers would notice. And then there would be no escape. The human stood slowly, his frame casting a shadow across the room. I don't have enough for everyone, he said. His voice was steady, but his heart beat faster. The second figure stepped closer. His hands shook, not from anger, but from weakness. Just a little. We have children too, please. Their words were sharp, but behind them was the same desperation Soraya had carried earlier, the same hunger that drove her to her knees. The human saw it, and it struck him. This colony was drowning in silence and starvation. He reached into his pack and pulled out the last piece of bread. He broke it in half and gave it to them. The figures snatched it quickly, biting into it like wolves. Their eyes shone for a moment with life. Then, without another word, they vanished back into the night. The fire crackled, filling the silence they left behind. Soraya's hands shook. She whispered, Now they will talk. Others will know. They will. Come, and when the overseers hear. She did not finish the sentence. Her fear said enough. The human sat down again, his jaw tight. Then let them come, he said. But deep inside, he knew she was right. This would not stay secret. A spark had been lit tonight, and sparks always drew attention. Morning came weakly, pale light slipping through broken walls. Lyra stirred, her small body stretching. She rubbed her eyes and smiled faintly at her mother. The sight made Soraya's chest ache with love and worry all at once. As they stepped outside, the colony seemed different. Whispers followed them through the alleys. Faces turned, some curious, some resentful, some fearful. The human could feel their eyes, heavy and sharp. A group of old alien women whispered among themselves. One muttered, A human, giving food? Another shook her head. No, it cannot be true. They take, they never give. But the youngest among them whispered, I saw it. It happened. Children peeked from doorways, their thin frames like shadows of ghosts. Hope flickered in their eyes, a dangerous thing in a place where hope was punished. Soraya kept her head low, whispering to the human, Do not look at them. If they believe you are here for us, the overseers will strike harder. They will not let kindness spread. The human clenched his fists, his steps heavy. Then maybe, it's time someone stopped them. Soraya froze, fear flashing in her eyes. No, you don't understand, human. They hold the power, they have the weapons, we have nothing but hunger. The man looked around at the broken streets, the hollow eyes, the silent suffering. His heart hardened. Hunger is enough, he muttered under his breath. They reached the edge of the slums where a broken market once stood. Empty stalls leaned like dying trees. The smell of rot and rust filled the air. Soraya paused there, her arms tightening around Lyra. This is our colony, she whispered. Her voice was low, heavy with sorrow. Once, we had trade. Music, life, now, only shadows. Only overseers. The human looked around, his chest tightened. He thought of his own people, how they would never let their children starve like this. And he felt anger rise, stronger than fear. Suddenly, heavy boots echoed in the yaw. Distance. Overseers. Their voices carried, harsh and cruel. Soraya's blood turned cold. She grabbed the human's arm, whispering sharply, Hide. If they see you with me, they will take you away. They will kill me. They will take her. The human's grip tightened on his pipe, his jaw clenched, his eyes locked on the street where the overseer's shadows grew longer. Soraya's breath came fast. Her heart raced. She pulled her daughter close, whispering prayers, and the human stood still, caught between choice and consequence, knowing the moment had come when kindness could no longer hide in the dark. The shadows of the colony were stirring, and soon, the overseers would know. The overseers' boots faded into the distance, their harsh voices echoing through the broken streets. Only when the sound was gone did Soraya dare to breathe again. She held Lyra close, her heart still beating like a trapped bird. The human beside her remained still, his grip tight around the pipe in his hand, his jaw clenched, his eyes dark. When silence finally returned, Soraya tugged at his arm. "We cannot stay outside any longer," she whispered. "If they see us again, it will be the end." He nodded, though his chest still burned with anger. Together they walked back to her shelter, the broken place she had dared to call home. The fire inside had turned to ash, thin smoke rising in the cold air. Soraya set Lyra down gently on the rags. The little girl stirred, rubbing her eyes. "Mama?" she whispered. Her voice was small, fragile. "Is there food again today?" Soraya's heart ached. She brushed her daughter's hair back and kissed her forehead. "Rest, little star. Maybe tomorrow," she whispered, hiding the fear in her voice. The human watched, his stomach tightened. He wanted to promise the child a feast, but he could not. His own pack was nearly empty. He had given away almost everything. Soraya turned, her eyes falling on the pile of ash in the corner. Once, long ago, she had cooked meals there. When her mate was alive, when the colony still had trade, they had laughed around that fire. Lyra had taken her first steps near it. But now, it was nothing but dust, cold and gray. Her hand shook as she picked up a piece of wood and tried to spark it back to life. The human stopped her gently. "There's no fuel," he said. "Save your strength." Her lips trembled. "If there is no fire, she will freeze," she whispered. Her eyes darted to Lyra, who had curled up, shivering in her sleep. The human took off his worn coat and draped it over the child. The fabric was rough, patched in many places, but it was warm. Lyra sighed softly in her dreams, snuggling into it. Soraya stared, her eyes wide. No one had given them warmth like this in years. She lowered her head, whispering, "Why are you doing this? Human? You don't know us, you risk yourself, you give us food, warmth. Why?" He sat down near the cold fire pit, staring into the ashes. His voice was low, steady. "Because someone has to." Soraya's throat tightened. She wanted to believe him, but fear wrapped around her heart. She remembered her promise, the words she had thrown at his feet in her desperation. She had told him she would cook, stay silent, even give herself if he saved Lyra. Now guilt burned her. Slowly, she moved toward him, her eyes lowered. "I will keep my promise," she whispered. "You gave her bread. You gave her warmth. I will be yours." Her hands trembled as she reached for him, but the human stopped her. His rough hand caught hers gently. He looked into her eyes, firm and unshaken. "No, that is not why I helped you." Soraya's breath caught. "Then why?" she asked, confused. "Because you deserve to live," he said. "Because she deserves to live." He nodded toward Lyra, sleeping softly under his coat. "Not as property, not as slaves, not because you offer yourself, but because you are alive." Tears filled Soraya's eyes. She sank to her knees, shaking. "No one has ever said that to me," she whispered. Her hands covered her face. Her sobs filled the small shelter, breaking years of silence she had forced upon herself. The human let her cry, saying nothing. His eyes moved again to the shadows outside. He could still feel the danger pressing in. Every whisper in the colony would carry what had happened tonight, and the overseers would not forgive it. When Soraya's sobs quieted, she wiped her face and whispered, "You don't understand them, human. They don't just punish. They break people. They make examples. If they know you helped us, they will destroy you. They will kill me in front of her eyes." Her voice cracked as she pulled Lyra closer again. "And then they will take her to the mines or worse." The human's chest tightened. He had seen cruelty before, but hearing it spoken so plainly made it heavier. He looked at Soraya, her trembling frame, her desperate hold on her daughter, and he made a silent promise to himself. He would not let that happen. The night dragged on, the cold biting at their bones. The fire pit stayed dark, only ash and dust left, but the human did not sleep. His eyes stayed open, his hand gripping the pipe, guarding them. In the quiet, Soraya whispered, "Long ago, before the overseers came, this place was alive. There was music in the nights. There were festivals, lights. Brighter than stars, my mate would carry Lyra on his shoulders and dance." She smiled faintly, then it vanished. Now all that is gone, burned away like this fire. The human looked at her, then at the ashes. His voice was low, steady. Ashes can burn again if someone lights them. Soraya met his gaze. Her eyes wide, something stirred inside her. Fragile but real, like a spark hidden in the cold. Outside, the colony lay in silence, but the silence was heavy, waiting. Shadows moved in the alleys. Whispers spread in the dark. The overseers would hear soon, and when they came, it would no longer be a quiet night. The bed of ashes inside the shelter was cold, but between a desperate mother, a sleeping child, and a human who refused to walk away, something new had begun, and when ashes stir, fire is never far behind. Morning light never truly reached the colony. Clouds of smoke and dust always hung above, turning the day gray and lifeless. Soraya stepped outside her shelter with careful eyes, holding Lyra's hand. The child still wore the human's patched coat, its size too large for her small frame, but it kept her warm. The human followed behind, his pipe still strapped to his side. He had not slept the whole night. His eyes carried a weight, a silent readiness. The streets seemed quieter than usual, but silence here was never safety. Whispers spread faster than wind. He noticed eyes following them, doors closing quickly, children hiding behind broken walls. Soraya's shoulders tensed. She knew what this meant. "They know," she whispered. "The overseers have heard." He gave a short nod, not surprised. He had expected this. The spark of kindness never stayed. Hidden in a place ruled by fear, even a crumb of bread was rebellion. By midday the sound came, heavy boots striking dirt, cruel laughter echoing. A group of overseers marched down the broken road, their armor patched with stolen metal, their weapons glowing faintly with energy, faces twisted with arrogance. They stopped before Soraya's shelter, blocking the street. Soraya froze, pulling Lyra behind her. Her heart thundered, her knees shook. She wanted to hide, to run, but there was nowhere left to go. The lead overseer sneered, his sharp teeth glinting. "So the rumors are true," he said loudly, so all hidden ears in the alleys could hear. "A human worker feeds the rats, gives them warmth, dares to treat them as equals." He stepped forward, pointing a clawed finger at Soraya. "And you, worthless beggar, you dared to beg him. You dared to take food without paying your price." Soraya's lips trembled. She dropped to her knees, pressing Lyra's face into her chest to shield her. "Please," she whispered. "It was only for her. She is just a child." The overseer laughed cruelly. "Children grow into thieves, hunger grows into rebellion. Better to starve them early." He lifted his weapon, pointing it toward Lyra. "Stop!" The human's voice cut. Through the air, the overseer paused, turning his head slowly. His eyes narrowed at the human. The crowd hidden in the shadows stirred. Whispers growing louder, the human stepped forward, his pipe in hand, his stance steady, his voice strong. "She asked for food and I gave it. If that is a crime, then blame me." The overseer's grin widened, mocking. "Blame you? Human, you forget your place. You are a laborer, nothing more. You fix our machines, you clean our filth. You don't decide who eats and who starves." The human's jaw tightened. He felt Soraya's eyes on him, her fear pulling at him, but he could not step back now. He raised the pipe slowly, its weight heavy but sure in his hands. "If feeding a child is rebellion," he said firmly, "then yes, I rebel." Gasps rippled through the hidden crowd. The overseer's face twisted in rage. He swung his weapon, slamming the butt into the dirt, sparks scattering. "Then you will be made an example," he roared. Two other overseers moved forward, their weapons ready. Soraya cried out, clutching Lyra. "No! Please don't." But the human stood tall. His heart pounded, but his grip did not falter. The overseer lunged, striking with his staff. The human blocked with his pipe, the clash ringing through the street. The force rattled his arms. But He pushed back, swinging hard. The pipe cracked against the overseer's side, making him stumble. The crowd, hidden in shadows, gasped. Their whispers grew louder, bolder. The other two charged. One swung at his head, but the human ducked, smashing. His pipe into the man's knee, a sickening crack echoed. The overseer howled, collapsing. The second came from behind, striking across the human's back. Pain shot through him, but he gritted his teeth, turning sharply. His pipe struck the man's arm, forcing him to drop his weapon. Sparks flared as it clattered to the ground. Saraya's breath caught. Her eyes wide with disbelief. She had never seen anyone fight them like this. Not a worker, not even a human. The crowd's whispers became shouts echoing down the alleys. "He fights them! He resists!" The lead overseer snarled, lunging again, his weapon humming with deadly energy. But before he could strike, a stone flew from the shadows, hitting his shoulder. Then another, and another. The hidden crowd was no longer silent. Voices rose. Enough. No more hunger. No more fear. Stones, broken wood, and scraps rained down on the overseers. The human stood breathing heavily, pipe in hand, his back aching but his spirit unbroken. He looked at Saraya, at Lyra clinging to her, and he knew. This was bigger than one meal, bigger than one act of kindness. The overseers stumbled back, their pride wounded more than their bodies. Their leader roared in fury, pointing at the human. "This is not over. You have chosen death." Then they retreated, their boots striking the ground in angry rhythm. Silence fell again, but it was not the same silence. This time, it carried something dangerous, something alive. Hope. Saraya looked at the human, tears on her cheeks. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "Why? Why would you risk everything?" He wiped the blood from his mouth, his eyes steady. Because someone had to stand. The crowd in the shadows stepped forward, their hollow eyes now burning with light. They looked at him not as a worker, not as an outsider, but as something else. A spark that could set fire to the ashes of their world. The overseer's retreat left the street heavy with silence, but it was not the silence of fear anymore. It was the silence of people holding their breath, of something hidden, waking inside them. For years the colony had bowed its head, whispered, in corners and obeyed. But tonight they had seen something different. A human who stood when no one else dared. Saraya held Lyra close, her hands trembling. Her daughter clung to her coat, eyes wide with a strange mix of fear and wonder. "Mama," Lyra whispered, "he fought them. For us." Saraya's throat tightened. She stroked her daughter's hair, unable to answer. Her heart was torn between gratitude and terror. She had prayed for food, for survival, not for rebellion. Yet rebellion had found them. The human leaned against a cracked wall, breathing hard. His back burned from the overseer's strike, but his grip on the pipe remained strong. He looked at the faces emerging from the shadows, thin, hungry, hollow-eyed. Yet now those eyes carried a spark. An old man stepped forward, his legs shaky, but his voice steady. "We thought kindness was dead. But you gave us bread, and now you gave us courage." Another voice rose, a woman holding a child on her hip. "We hide while they starve us, beat us, but you struck them back." Her eyes glistened with tears. "Maybe we are not as powerless as they made us believe." The whispers grew louder, spreading like wind through the ruined streets. He stood against them. He fought. He made them bleed. Saraya looked around, her heart racing. She could see it. The shift in the people. Their silence was breaking, but she also knew what came after. She turned to the human quickly, whispering sharply, "You must leave before they return with more. If they catch you here, they will kill you, and they will destroy us all for standing near you." The human met her gaze, his eyes steady, unflinching. "If I leave, they win again. And nothing changes." Saraya shook her head. "You don't understand, human. They control the guards, the food, the air we breathe. One fight will not break them." He straightened, his jaw set. "Maybe not one, but one is enough to show them the people are not broken. Not yet." Before she could argue, footsteps echoed again. Not overseers this time, but people. Dozens of them coming from the alleys, from the broken market, from the slums. mothers carrying children, old men with bent backs, young workers. With fists clenched, they gathered silently around the shelter, their eyes fixed on him. One young man stepped forward, his voice low but burning. "Teach us, human. Show us how to fight them." The human looked at the thin crowd, their bodies weak but their eyes alive. He saw fear but also hope, the same fragile hope he had seen in Lyra's smile when she ate the bread. He tightened his grip on the pipe. "I am no soldier," he said, "but I know this. If you stand together, they cannot control all of you. Their power is only as strong as your silence." The words struck the crowd like a hammer. Silence was what had chained them. Silence was what had starved them. An old woman lifted her chin, her voice trembling but fierce. "Then we will not be silent." The people murmured. Louder now. "No more silence, no more silence." The chant rose, not yet a scream but a steady, growing rhythm that filled the broken streets. Soraya clutched Lyra tighter, her heart pounding. She looked at the human, fear and awe mixing in her eyes. "You are making them believe, but belief is dangerous," the human nodded. "Belief is the only thing more dangerous than hunger." That night, the colony changed. The people did not storm the overseer's barracks. They did not burn weapons or shout war. Instead, they lit fires in the open, small flames flickering in the dark. For years, they had kept their fires hidden, afraid overseers would punish them for gatherings. But tonight, fires burned in every alley. Every family sat together in the open, silent but united. The overseers marched through the streets, their boots heavy, their weapons ready. But as they passed, the people did not bow, did not hide, did not scatter. They sat by their fires, their eyes unbroken. The overseers barked orders, shouted threats, but no one moved. Soraya sat by her own small fire, Lyra on her lap, the human beside them. His face was calm, his eyes sharp. He watched as the overseers grew unsettled. Their power came from fear, but fear was slipping from their hands. One overseer raised his weapon toward a fire, ready to strike. But the people around it did not run, did not cry. They stared back in silence, dozens of eyes against one weapon. The overseer hesitated for the first time. The human leaned close to Soraya, whispering, "This is how it begins, not with war, but with courage." Soraya's heart trembled. She had begged for bread, for survival. But now, she was watching something greater, her people rising, not with swords but with silent defiance. Lyra stirred in her arms, looking at the flames. Her small voice whispered, "Mama, it feels warm tonight." Soraya held her daughter close, her eyes filling with tears. She looked at the human, the man who had lit this fire in more ways than one, and she realized, whether it brought salvation or destruction, their lives had already changed. The silent revolt had begun, and once a people remember they can stand, no overseer's boots can, keep them on their knees forever. The overseers did not sleep that night. They patrolled the streets with weapons in hand, their voices loud, their threats cruel, yet the people did not hide. For the first time in years, fires burned openly in the alleys. Children laughed softly around the flames. Mothers held them close, fathers sat with clenched fists. The colony was no longer silent. The human sat beside Soraya's fire, Lyra asleep under his coat again. Her breathing was steady, her face peaceful. Soraya stroked her daughter's hair. With trembling hands, her eyes lifted to the human, full of questions she could not voice. He met her gaze, steady and calm. "They will return in force tomorrow," he said. "Tonight they are afraid. Tomorrow they will try to crush you." Soraya's throat tightened. She looked at the glowing fire, then at the thin figures gathered in the shadows beyond. "If they crush us, what will be left?" She whispered. The human's grip tightened around the pipe, resting across his knees. "You," he said simply, "your voices, your courage, that cannot be crushed." Morning came gray and heavy. Dust choked the air, but the fires still burned. The overseers marched into the heart of the colony, dozens of them now, armor clanking, weapons humming. Their leader shouted, "This ends today. You will bow or you will burn." But the people did not bow. They gathered in the streets, hundreds now, silent but standing. their eyes fixed on the overseers. Defiance glowing like coals, the human stepped forward, pipe in hand. His voice rang, clear. No more hunger, no more chains. The overseers roared with laughter, their leader sneering. You think you can fight us? You are weak, starving, broken. But then from the crowd, an old man lifted his staff and slammed it to the ground. No more silence, he cried. His voice cracked but carried far. Another voice followed, a woman shouting, No more fear. Soon the chant spread, louder and louder. No more silence, no more fear. The overseers faltered. Their power had always come from silence, from fear. But now the colony's voice thundered against them, louder than weapons. The leader raised his weapon in fury, aiming at the human. But before he could fire, a dozen stones flew from the crowd. Striking his armor, knocking him back, he stumbled, rage twisting his face. The overseers charged, weapons sparking. The people surged forward, not with blades, but with numbers. They threw stones, swung sticks, even their bare fists. The human fought at the front, pipe clashing against steel. His arms burned, but he stood unbroken. Soraya clutched Lyra in the crowd, her heart pounding as she watched. Fear and pride battled in her chest. She whispered to her daughter, Look, little star. Look at him, he stands for us. The battle raged, but something strange was happening. Every strike, every cry, every stone thrown made the overseers falter. They were used to obedience, not resistance. Their lines broke under the weight of unity. At last the leader shouted, Fall back. Rage burned in his eyes, but fear was stronger. The overseers retreated, their boots pounding the dirt, leaving the colony behind. Silence followed again, but this time, it was not heavy. It was not the silence of chains. It was the silence of disbelief, of a people realizing what they had done. The human stood breathing hard, his face bruised, his hands bleeding. He leaned on his pipe, his chest heaving. He looked around at the colony, burned, broken, but alive. The people stared at him, their eyes full of something new. Respect. An old woman whispered, He gave us back our voices. A young man cried, He showed us we can stand. The chant rose again, but this time with joy. No more silence. No more fear. The colony's voice roared through the ruins, shaking the walls. Soraya stepped forward, Lyra clinging to her side, her eyes filled with tears as she looked at the human. She remembered the night she had begged on her knees, promising anything if he fed her daughter. She had promised silence, labor, even her body. And yet he had given her something far greater. Her voice trembled as she whispered, I begged you only to feed her. I offered you everything. But instead, you gave us back our lives, you gave her a future. The human looked at Lyra, her small smile, her glowing eyes. He felt the weight of her innocence, the promise of her tomorrow. He reached out and touched her head gently. I kept my promise, he said softly. She will not starve again. Soraya fell to her knees, but this time not in shame. Her tears fell freely as she whispered, Not just her, all of us. You lit the fire again. The colony stood together, their fires burning bright even under the gray sky. They were still hungry, still weak, but something stronger than hunger now filled their chests, hope. And in that moment, they understood. One human's choice had changed everything. The overseers would return, battles would come, but the people had risen, their silence broken, their fear burned away, and as Soraya held her daughter close, watching the human stand among them, she knew this truth. The promise had been kept not only to her child but to an entire world that had forgotten how to hope.